Welcome back to Preparing for the Unexpected. We're talking with one of the co-authors of Leaders Under Fire, Jeff Chatterton. Jeff, great first and second segment. You mentioned lawyers earlier on. I'd like to jump into that a little bit more detail. When should we use legal advice and when not? The reason I'm asking is I have a situation that I'm aware of right now where legal representation is getting their fingers in everything, and I'm feeling like core messages are being diluted, and I'm not comfortable with that, and I've communicated it. So when and under what circumstances should we or shouldn't we use legal advice or take legal advice, I should say?
Uh, do, do you want a generality that I'm sure a lot of legal counsel are going to argue with me on? Um, Legal counsel are like goldfish. They take up the size of the environment that you give them, and they will grow to the size of that tank. I have worked with some phenomenally great lawyers. I have also had the opportunity to work with some less than great lawyers. The really, really great ones, the ones that are there to genuinely represent their client, understand that there's more than one courtroom. The ones that are difficult tend to believe that the legal courtroom is the only one that counts. And that's an absolutely horrible, horrible position to put your client in. I've made that point. The most obvious example I can think of off the top of my head, 10 years ago maybe, the mayor of London, Ontario, got charged with conflict of interest charges. The RCMP laid criminal charges against Joe Fontana. And I had a couple of people right away try to get me to do some media training and some coaching with him. I made a couple calls, got his lawyer, and his lawyer said, "Oh, we're not talking." And I'm like, "What on earth are you doing? Like, you are the mayor of a city of 350,000 people. They need leadership. There is more, like, there is more than one courtroom out there. How incredibly selfish are you? How incredibly arrogant is that to assume that your venue is the only venue that matters?" And when you are so afraid of your own shadow, when you're afraid of communicating the truth to people, then frankly, you deserve what's going to happen to you. The really good lawyers understand there is a time and a place to be communicating, and that time is probably last week, not today, but now is better than tomorrow. They understand that what I'm doing is helping communicate the truth. And the truth is an absolute defense in any civil or legal argument ever. The truth is the truth. There are different variations and different perspectives on the truth, but the truth never goes away. The truth is always there. And if you need some help communicating the truth, that's nothing to be ashamed of, for heaven's sake. Let's get together and work on what that looks like. And if you know, I have worked with some really great legal teams who are like, "What are you trying to do?" And I'm like, I need to do this." And they're like, "Okay, but you can't say this word. We can't use this as legal." "Okay, well, will you let me say this?" "Oh, well, yeah, we can say that." Okay, there's a give and take. There's a workmanship. There's an ebb and a flow and an ability to work together with a common goal in mind. The ones that really mess up the situation for everyone just don't have that ability to see outside themselves.
Yeah, like I said, I'm experiencing that. Couple of template messages we put together, direct, right to the point, have been watered down that it's not communicating what we want it to anymore.
Yeah, and the problem is, yeah, it's because they're afraid.
Yeah.
because they are afraid. That's really what it is. And I've uh, for some of them it's ego. For some of them, they think they're doing the right thing, but it's tragic to watch because in the meantime, you have a client whose profitability is going down the toilet. You have you know a client whose credibility is being attacked every day or whatever is going on. The good ones recognize that. The good ones
Mm.
recognize there is a fight to be had next week as well, and we better be around for that. The inevitable conclusion to the Joe Fontana story was that he was not reelected as mayor of London, Ontario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about a couple of examples. Now, you just kind of gave us a bad example, but we were kind of talking about legal. So
Yeah.
let's go in a different negative direction. Can you give us a good example of maybe what messaging coming from an organization or a spokesperson, and an example of one that you look back at and just shake your head and wonder, WTF? Yeah.
um, my I mean, one of my favorite stories I've personally been involved with, and we tell the story in the book, is I was just there last month. So I had it was a hot air balloon company just operating off the Vegas Strip, and they had a refueling incident and a massive fireball. So I was sitting at my desk. It was I remember this specifically. It was 12:09 p.m. So just after lunchtime, which makes it just shortly after 9 a.m. in Vegas, and I got a call from my client, and uh, and he says, I'm on fire. And I'm like, what? And he goes, no, seriously, I just got a call. There's a massive fireball in Vegas. I don't know if my pilot is alive or dead. And I'm like, how many passengers? He goes, no passengers. It was in the yeah, I've been to that site, so he told me where it was. It was, over in this corner. We don't take passengers there. He was refueling, but I don't know. All I know is this. I have no idea what's happening. So that was 12:09. I was doing live television. I normally don't do spokesperson duties for my client. It's the credibility argument, but in that particular case, I was the best of a bunch of bad options. So I became the spokesperson for Vegas Balloon Rides, and I was doing live television in Las Vegas at 12:14. 5 minutes before I
Wow.
was doing live TV. I had no idea, but I knew that here's what I did know. I knew it was not Al Qaeda. This is literally within sight of the Las Vegas Strip. People are looking at a massive fireball in a post 9/11 environment, in and going, "Oh shit," if I can say that. But yeah, it's okay. This was an industrial refueling accident. Are people hurt? We don't know, but I do know that no passengers were involved. So there, emergency crews are on the scene. We're doing this. We have, folks from the FAA and the Las Vegas Fire Rescue and everyone else and their brother in between on their way. I will give you more information as I have it, and this is what I can tell you. Basically a variation of here's what I know, here is what I don't know, which becomes more critically important because when you can openly admit what you don't know, it proves that you're being credible. And here's where you can go for more information, which at that point was as simple as I'll be back in 2 or 3 hours and I'll call you, or here's my number. Right. Basically did that nonstop for about the next 24 hours. Got a late night flight to Vegas that night. Started doing live interviews on the scene with a melted hot air balloon company behind me as a backdrop. Um, the long story short, because we were able to put down fears, because we were able to establish that this wasn't passenger safety related, that it had nothing to do with hot air balloon safety. It was an industrial propane issue. They didn't lose a single booking. They We were up in the air with alternative equipment. A week later, we did over $150,000 worth of live media exposure because all of a sudden, ABC, CBS, Fox, and everyone else knew that there were hot air balloons that were happening. So we came back and I said to the owner, "Give me the first day." And so on that first day, we did live stand-ups from the balloon. Um, and he sold the company about 8 months later for over $800,000 more than what he was expecting.
No, well,
Um, it uh, it's not a case of knowing all the information. It's knowing and jumping in and being able to control the narrative.
right.
This is not terrorism. This is not passenger safety. This is not anything to do with that. And But here is how it works. For every bad incident, I mean, heck, the, I'm you can go on and on and on. I don't like using political examples just because automatically half of your audience is going to think that you're wrong.
Yeah.
But every politician, you could go on and on and on. The example we used a lot of in the book was the early days of Uber. I think Travis Kalanick made it much, much harder on himself than he could have. I think Donald Trump makes it much, much harder on himself than he could. Um, and it's primarily ego. People who are afraid to say, "I've reconsidered it. You made some good points. I'm prepared to acknowledge that and to consider that when we make this decision." Um, they're just hell bent on proving that you're wrong, and it's not that simple sometimes.
It's interesting. You've mentioned ego a couple of times through these three segments. Is that one of the biggest obstacles to come over?
I
To
think so.
overcome, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. In a crisis, people are accusing you of doing awful things. Um, you're poisoning my hot dogs. You're making my kids sick. You're giving my family cancer. You stole my identity. You are doing all of these awful and horrible things. Um, and you're like I said, you're hardwired to deny that. You're like, how dare you? The hell you say? There is no way. And you become buried in, I need to prove to people that I'm right and they're wrong. And it just doesn't work like that. If you can come alongside them instead of in opposition to them. Um, if Travis Kalanick had found a more effective way of going to frustrated city councilors and saying, "Look, I get it. You want your residents to have a good, safe, reliable transportation option. And I think it's really awful that the taxi company here is holding you to a monopoly. We're here to help you with that." I think it's a much better position than, "Screw you, you can't tell us what to do," which is how they effectively ran the early days of Uber. Um, and you go on and on and on and on with different examples all over North America and across the globe of companies that do it well and companies that don't.
Well, we have a minute and a half left. You want to take a minute with any final thoughts you'd like to share?
No, I've had some fun. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm glad you reached out and asked if you could talk. I could talk about this sort of stuff all day. I live off it. I thrive off it. And if if anyone wants the book, for heaven's sake, I mean, it's on Amazon. I think if you know, uh, send me a note. I'll happily sign it for you.
It is an interesting read, like writing it the way that you and Conway wrote it. It is rather interesting to see because you're really kind of visualizing the stories and sometimes you're feeling for these guys going, oh my God, I feel so bad for that person.
We
Or
we
so
tried to
good for
keep it
them.
at about 150 pages, so you should be able to finish it on a flight between, Toronto and Los Angeles.
Yeah. I actually read it on the plane, believe it or not.
Yep.
So it's funny you said that. But congratulations once again, Jeff, for Leaders Under Fire
Well, and
and Shadow
congratulations to you.
Comic
You're
Book.
doing a really good work here.
Oh, thank you. I enjoy this. This is a lot of fun
Yeah.
talking to different people, and I always learn some new nuggets. Every person that I talk to. That's why I keep doing it. So,
That's awesome.
so thank you so much for sharing your time, Jeff, and all your talk about hot dogs and birthday cakes and different food. I'm now hungry, and we'll go get something to eat after we finish this. So thank you again, and everyone watching and listening. Stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.